Well, welcome back again to Rare Classic Cars, here with John Manoogian.
Thank you.
Going to discuss another of John's all-time favorites, right, John?
Another controversial Cadillac program.
This seems like a common theme that we keep saying, right?
It is.
Controversial Cadillac.
The 80s and Cadillac was a very difficult time. Yes.
And it seems like Cadillac was always just trying to catch up a bit to the imports and with different cars. The Cimarron kind of catch the BMW 3 Series, and then the two-placer that we're going to talk about now, the Allante, trying to catch up to the Mercedes.
Well,
SL.
and Cadillac was literally reinventing itself. You know, they were coming off these gigantic cars that they had been so successful with. Cadillac was the standard of the world. And suddenly they were faced with all this competition from Europe and soon to be Asia. They wanted to be able to compete. And the two-place program was supposed to compete with, at the time, the Mercedes SL. That was the car that was viewed as the aspirational two-place car for people who had made it.
Good-looking car, but
Attractive car, yes.
it was. And here you have, so Cadillac's trying to get into the, that car was priced in the stratosphere relative to
Yes.
Cadillac pricing, $50,000 plus,
Yes.
which Cadillac didn't have anything in that stratosphere, generally playing at less than half of the base price.
Right, right.
So I guess, maybe let's talk a little bit about what the thought process was there, so that in order to command that price, is that what the genesis was to going outside, or what was...
I think there were a number of mitigating factors that drove that decision. One, I think Cadillac believed in their heart that they needed a name designer. They wanted someone outside of the Cadillac studio who had a name for design, which meant Italy at that time.
Not Bill Blass.
No.
Okay.
Meant Italy. And so they made the decision, rightfully or wrongfully, that they were going to go to Pininfarina in Italy to get the Cadillac two-place car designed. And they were going to do it without the Cadillac Studios' help. And so that decision was made amongst Cadillac management, the sales, manufacturing, engineering. Everybody decided from Cadillac's perspective that they were going to go to Italy. And we in the studio were like, well, that's the dessert. That's the cool stuff. Why can't we work on it?
You had suffered through the
Cimarron.
the Cimarron,
Yeah,
the
and,
EK.
and we were currently doing the EK cars. And it was such a plum assignment to do a two-place Cadillac. That was like, for me, it was the top of the pyramid. And so when we heard and we found out that the division had decided to go to Pininfarina, we were like crestfallen. How could they do that? Why would they do that? So there was a big push. Wayne Cady, my boss at the time, went to the big boss, Irv, and said, my guys are kind of down about this whole thing. Cadillac is going to Italy and getting their car designed by Pininfarina. Why can't we, the Cadillac studio, do another proposal, if not really competing with Pininfarina's design, to show Cadillac what might be if they stick with the home team? So Irv Rubicki agreed. He told Wayne Cady, okay, you guys have got your hands full with Cimarrons and DeVilles and Fleetwoods and Eldorados and Sevilles, but if you can pull it off, if you can do it, go ahead. He gave Wayne the approval. So that was great. For me, that was like the open door. I'm gonna work so hard to get something that's gonna compete at the same level with Pininfarina. That was my, I got up every day in the morning saying, that's what I'm gonna do. So here we were in the studio, production studio, thinking, do we stand a chance? We were gonna give it everything we had.
Well, let's see what you gave.
So here's what
Oh, man.
here's what I gave them.
As if you were ready for this.
Yeah. So this was, and I've got a boatload of these, but this would have been a unique to Cadillac. No other division would have had it. Two-place car. The idea with this one, of course, as you've seen in some of my other work, I toyed with the idea of skirting the rear wheels, being a Cadillac. And this would have been like a T-top or a removable top with a halo, kind of a roll bar Targa look, and then a backlight that wrapped around. Very soft, very fluid. I think at this point, the Taurus probably had just come out. The Sable had just come out. So that whole aero, soft, sculpted look was becoming much more popular. The Italians were kind of walking away from the real hard, rigid look. So this was a proposal for that.
Wow.
We did a cornucopia of ideas for that car. And again, this was a play off of that one. Again, just a real clean design execution, skirted rear wheels.
So, I mean, so different from what's in the Cadillac dealership showroom, too, at the time.
At that point, it would have been like it came from outer space, like it had landed from Jupiter.
You got a Targa top here,
Yes,
too.
yes. And these Italian tech wheels, I was trying everything. Again, I was big on the skirted wheels. There's a much lower belt line. This looks more product-y, more Italian design than what we were used to doing in the Cadillac studio.
Is that a drag section at the rocker there, John?
It could be, yes.
Is that a vestige of your Ford days there? Do I see 71 Mercury down there?
You probably do, yes.
I like
Yes.
it. You probably do, yes.
Yes. Here's some more.
Wow.
Again, my aesthetic was very clean, very straightforward. Nothing complex or complicated. Cadillac and ultimately the Pininfarina design wound up being very, very clean, very straightforward, nothing silly or unusual.
And also pretty boxy, and no plan view tapering in the front really or rear on the production one.
The front had a lot of plan view on all of my sketches, but the production car, the Allante,
right, it just
looked like it hit a wall. It just had a very, very flat face.
I wonder why they did that. They thought that
it could have been packaging. They had to use the EK driveline.
That's right.
So, and again, here's one where we had a hatchback. Maybe this was too much of a Chevrolet Pontiac, but
wow.
Like I keep saying, paper's cheap. Just keep doing those sketches.
Now this one is, I like this basket handle kind of.
This would have been a little more unique, yes, with a basket handle, blacked out, and then the same kind of simple body side. This was supposed to be a very expensive, elegant car. The Mercedes SL was such an icon. It was an aspirational car for many, many people.
And of course, you envisioned it with the manually folding top mechanism that it
Hopefully
came out
not.
with. No, that
Hopefully
was
not.
this $55,000 car with the.
Yes.
Remember that top?
Yes.
I mean, you'd be in the parking lot for about a half hour trying to
get it to work. Yes. 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 So I produced many of these.
Yeah, they're so clean.
And again, then I would open up the rear wheel, just doing as many different ideas as I could think of. And then from all of these sketches, of course, I would pick those that I thought maybe had more merit, and I would do a full-size tape drawing. And we can show some of those, but when you get it in full size over a package, it always tends to change and evolve the design a little bit depending upon what the package is.
I see. So
versus the sketches.
So the full size, the purpose there is what the wheelbase is, the package.
Correct.
And you're trying to take this.
Correct.
And I got it.
You're trying to take an artist's idea, rendering, and then transform that into a actual production package Sometimes it's more successful than others. And sometimes designers, and I've been known to do it, maybe cheated their designs too much. And when they got to full size, you couldn't get there from here. And it would change the whole look of the car. But these were just what if, not knowing what Pininfarina was doing, we had no idea what they were going to come up with. And I was trying to put myself into their place and think, well, now what would the Italians do? And then what could we do that would make it more American, in that I was using vertical taillights, which ultimately they did not use. And I was also using a V'd front end grille, which they chose not to do also. I was always surprised that Pininfarina's solution for the front was just a horizontal band of egg crate.
Yeah.
And they chose not to do the V shape. I would have loved to have talked to them about that, but we weren't involved. So at any rate, there's
this one's one of my favorites with this this
top down.
The top down and then the fender skirt. That's an angled fender skirt. I think that's
yes.
pretty sweet.
And then the bumper would have been below that. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, we never did anything like that. But here I actually had the skirt cut line. So see, you know, if you get a flat tire, you can always fix it. You can always fix it.
I'm sure the Cadillac owner would be getting the jack out.
They
right?
would call the service guys and gals and say, "I got a flat. Can you fix it?"
This is a fun one too.
This had more of a conventional looking upper on it. I was pretty consistent with what I was doing on the fronts, but this was the area that I thought would probably give us the most change from, let's say, the Mercedes or whatever else was out there at the time.
Because that Mercedes, especially with the hard top on, was a really,
Yes.
you know, kind of glassy box on top of a box.
Yes.
Theme.
Yeah. And again, that was the era where uppers, it was light and airy. They weren't real confined and heavy.
Except it took 3 people to lift the top off.
Yes. Here's one where it was really blue sky, where I actually had glass that was formed, much like the Camaro Firebirds were. This never would have worked, but nonetheless, it was just an idea.
Wow.
It was an idea.
You're right, that Camaro Firebird back glass in that era.
I love that. I love that thing. So these are all full-size tape drawings that I had chosen to do from the sketches, just to do a full-size proposal. And I did a large number of these, some more formal than others. This was a very, very formal solution. Most of them were a little faster, a little more sporty and aggressive. This was a full-size tape of that sketch that we had talked about with the skirted rear, where I actually tipped it.
Wow.
I think I did this one with John Cafaro, yes.
That's definitely modern.
For the time, it would have been very, very contemporary.
It was this mid-80s now?
This would have been 82, 83.
Oh my
probably.
gosh. 82, 83? Wow.
Yes. Because I think they brought the car here, the clay, in 84. This was probably a more formal Eldorado-like execution. Again, I was trying any number of ideas.
So John was your partner in crime here on
Well,
these? Or?
very briefly, John was in there. We had Andy Hansel was in there briefly. There were a number of people that came and went. I was the assistant, so.
John later, Mr. Corvette.
Yes, he went on to do great things in Corvette and Pontiac. Yeah.
I think I got into disagreeing with him about a molding on a Chevrolet Cruze or something. He wasn't very happy with me.
Well,
Well,
that happens.
that's what I usually say. Those moldings are too expensive.
That
right?
happens. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, these were, and you know, I did so many of these.
A lot of different themes on the back glass here, too.
Yes. Well, again, that's the area that I thought we could probably get a dramatic statement, because the fronts are pretty much what they are. But this area of the car is always the area where you can really make a very, very strong graphic statement.
Certainly very different from the Mercedes, particularly from the rear.
Yes, yes. And, you know, these full-size tape drawings would probably take anywhere from a day and a half, 2 days to do. So I was cranking these out on my own time, some of these, just to get them done.
How long were you cranking out these different designs for?
Months. And again, you know, this is in addition to doing all the Cimarron stuff, Eldorado, Seville, the DeVille, Fleetwood. We had our hands full. But to me, this was going to be a plum assignment. This was going to be the greatest thing that I could work on.
And sadly, the die had already been cast.
Unbeknownst to me at the time, Cadillac had made the decision way prior to me doing any of this that they were going to, in fact, had signed a contract with Pininfarina to do the design.
And it was unbeknownst to you at this.
I had no clue. I knew they were going to Pininfarina, but I didn't understand that they had signed the agreement. The die was cast.
So you're kind of lobbying here for.
I'm thinking they're going to see something they like and say, you know, maybe we don't need Pininfarina. Maybe we can have the Cadillac guys do something.
I mean, in truth,
that was my mental model.
I'm obviously no artist, but objectively, these are more dynamic.
I'd say they probably had more Cadillac character than the Allante. I'll be the first to say the Allante is a beautiful car, very well executed. Nobody could find fault with that design. Nobody. My issue is that it could have been more of a Cadillac, i.e., the face of the car should have been more Cadillac. The rear of the car could have been a little more Cadillac. The upper might have been a little more Cadillac. The Allante is beautiful. I know that there's a big following for Allante owners, but my position is it could have been a little more Cadillac.
And we're obviously talking about the exterior themes here, John, but I know you're a distinct lover of the buttons on the interior.
Yes, but unfortunately, the interior I had nothing to do with that.
Was that a Pininfarina interior?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was. The whole car was.
Interesting. Yes. You know, and I enjoy, the Allante was, I mean, the base price was, I think, $55,000. That zip code ended up getting close to 60 toward the end of the run. Sold 3,000-4,000 a year, unfortunately.
They were flying the bodies from Italy, delivering them to Detroit to put the driveline in.
The world's longest
I
assembly
can't
line.
imagine how much that cost.
Yeah, for the viewer, as John's referring to, they chartered 747 airplanes.
Special planes.
Special planes, specially outfitted with the gear, so the body, you know, not the engine and the underpinnings, but
body in white.
Basically, yeah, and I think it was trimmed out too, even. Right?
Yes, you're right. You're right.
So then that all went on a 747, all the way from Italy to Detroit to be married up with the chassis. And I don't know what the finance guy was who approved that.
Luckily, I was just a car stylist, but if I had seen how much that was costing the company, I would have asked a few questions. But they had already signed the contract, and I think at some point you can't pull out. Once you've signed that deal, that's it.
It is, unless you want to pay the cancellation
well,
fee.
You would know more about that than I would.
But that may have been a better choice. Pay the cancellation
in hindsight,
fee and get out.
In hindsight, yes. This was, interestingly enough, I tried one with a vertical taillight and then one with a horizontal taillight, just to say it could go either way and still be identified as a Cadillac, I thought.
You have very different wheels on this one too, John.
Wire wheels, yes. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's different. It's nice.
And just so the audience knows, if you wonder where all of this led, we were allowed, as a studio, to do a full-size clay, which we were empowered to do on our own as a alternative to Pininfarina's design. and we got to show it on the patio with Pininfarina's car as a finale.
It's unfortunate. I mean, as a finale.
Nothing ever came of it.
I feel your pain.
This was a more refined idea, maybe a little more Mercedes-like, where I was going to take the grille and do a Cadillac-like hood, but it has some feeling of Mercedes in it. The rear would have had vertical taillights, but a black plastic smoked lens.
Well, like a little edge taillight there.
Yes.
Oh, that's an interesting interpretation.
Nothing. This was all cannon fodder.
Wow. Again, this is dated 1983.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it just blows my mind, John. It's unfortunate it didn't lead anywhere, and I can only, like I said, I can only imagine once you learned. Here's the.
But I should quickly add, I had so much fun doing these two-place Cadillacs because it was such a unique project, and because my mindset was, I'm going to make something happen here. I'm going to get something that Cadillac's going to respond to. It was so much fun. I mean, we were doing DeVilles and Fleetwoods and Eldorados and Sevilles, and this was like something I really could identify with. So that's the story of the ill-fated Cadillac two-place car that was done by the studio versus the Allante, which was the production car done by Pininfarina.
And I'm sure that the lackluster sales had nothing to do, right, with the
price. I'm sure didn't help.
The price didn't help. The $55,000 plus price, the interestingly operable manual top, the 170 horsepower. They did get a different intake system for the V8 early on.
They had some initial quality issues too, which probably didn't help.
That's just the hand coach work that was imparted to the vehicle.
Italians, yes.
That's
yes.
right. It wouldn't be an Italian vehicle. It didn't have a few little
quirks,
right? Well, thank you, John, for that interesting tale of the Cadillac.
Thank you for the opportunity, because I've never had a chance to show these to anyone other than yourself.
Well, thanks so much, John, for telling the story of the Allante.
Thanks again.